Welcome to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the Beantown podcast. This is your host, Quinn David Furness, our first installment of the Beantown 2018 Spring Break Road Trip Podcast Spectacular. We are so excited to be coming to you live on the Lord's Day, live from the heart of central Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, the capital. It is a beautiful day out in central Pennsylvania for April 22nd, 2018. How are you? What's new? What's good? What is fresh? We are set up here in our hotel room. We're doing some work this week in Pennsylvania before we head down south to hit up Memphis next Saturday morning, live from the Mississippi River. We will be there. I promise the podcast will not be broadcast in that voice, but I'm happy to be here with you today, live from PA. This is the first time that the podcast has ever come to you live from outside Beantown. Usually I advertise coming to you live from 817 St. Paul Street. It's a little bit different. St. Paul Street is on the back burner today, and we're going live. Sorry, I thought I heard somebody trying to get into my hotel room. That was scary. It reminds me of yesterday. Went to the Charles Theater and saw Joaquin Phoenix in You Were Never Really Here, a really powerful, intense film about a lot of different things, but I think one of the most prominent themes is the PTSD aspect. Joaquin plays an Iraq War veteran, Gulf War veteran. They don't make it explicitly clear. It's not important, but and he has a lot of suicidal tendencies. And I don't want to give away the movie at all, but it's if you can stomach the violence and the sort of disturbing sequences. It's a fantastic film. I rarely in my movie review life give out 4 stars, but You Were Never Really Here has earned my respect. 4 out of 4 stars for You Were Never Really Here. So go check it out if you get the chance. I know A Quiet Place is kind of grabbing all the headlines, and Avengers is coming out soon, I think. But boy, this was a fantastic film. You don't want to miss it. If you can't handle a lot of blood, a lot of violence, PTSD-related images, then you might take a pass on this. But I don't. I try not to give out my movie recommendations haphazardly, because I hate it when people walk up to me and are like, "Oh, Quinn, you gotta watch this movie or that movie. It's great," and they don't really tell you anything about it, and you don't really feel compelled to watch it because it's not a reliable recommender. That's what I'm trying to do for you here today. I'm trying to become a reliable recommender. Speaking of Joaquin's, we have coming up hopefully shortly on the podcast here, special guest Joaquin Alasko of DePaul Housing Services fame. He's coming on the podcast, I believe, in a couple minutes here, if Joaquin calls in. Otherwise, this would be we're just going to ramble until he comes on. This might be your first ever marathon podcast, which that's in the works. That's coming up perhaps in the fall. But Joaquin, we're ready for you whenever. Coming on to talk about passions and what happens when you lose your passion. I don't really know how it's going to go. We were approached by Joaquin a couple weeks back, and happy to fit him in on our road trip here. And we're just going to see how that goes. And then after we finish up there, we are going to one of our big Facebook questions this week. We're still doing what are your thoughts on, and we wanted to know about women in leadership. That was the big question for us this week. I know in the past we've discussed the 19th Amendment, which doesn't allow discrimination based on gender or sex. It doesn't allow courts or states to discriminate against you and your ability to have the right to vote. And we got mostly pro responses in that 19th Amendment debate. Yes, women and men alike should be allowed to vote. without issue. So we've been getting some comments here and there this week about women in leadership. We're taking largely a biblical spin on it, and we're going to have some pros and cons. I was talking to my people this morning about it, and they say, "Hey, Quinn, why didn't you get any actual women in leadership for your podcast?" And I said, well, first and foremost, in Trump's America, it's tough to find women in leadership roles. They really aren't out there. But secondly, you call Hillary Clinton, you call Elizabeth Warren, even Sarah Palin, who I don't think has any leadership roles at this stage in her career, but you call these offices and you tell them, hey, Beantown podcast, here's my profile, here are my stats, this million subscribers and listens, per week, and advertising dollars, all that stuff. And they just they don't even get back to you. So it's really it's kind of disrespectful. And I gotta tell you, when we're talking about this women in leadership debate, it certainly starts to swing the pendulum a certain way. And I won't give away which way it swings, but it is what it is. So we're gonna get to that in a little bit here. Again, we're just waiting on our friend Joaquin to call in. He's seemed pretty eager to get on the podcast, so hopefully we'll get you coming in soon here, Joaquin. Until then, what's been going on in the news lately? Let's run down a couple different things. NBA playoffs are in full swing. The Philadelphia 76ers are making some noise. One of their big things. So they've taken a series lead now against Dwayne Wade and the Miami Heat, formerly LeBron James' old flame. So the 76ers were pretty bad for a while there, and their big kind of motto as they move forward here has been trust the process. And I got to tell you what, it's working for the 76ers. I've actually had to trust the process myself just recently. I was sitting down last night, kind of went on a binge episode, had about different brats. I had 5 bratwursts and some onion rings, and even threw a margarita in there. So in a way, I'm trusting the process myself, and that process is the digestive process. And early progress reports were positive on trusting the process in that department this morning. And by department, I mean my large intestine. So that was how I trust the process. I trust that, hey, every time I consume an inordinate amount of food, meat, carbs, saturated fats, all that stuff, that, hey, body's going to take care of itself. So, what they say, you're not going to be in your mid-20s forever, but while you're in your mid-20s, you are in your mid-20s. So that's what I'm living by. What else is going on in Beantown? Light City is happening in Baltimore this weekend. Just finishing up. If you had the chance, probably too late at this point, but if you had the chance to walk around the Inner Harbor region, or Fed, or Fells, or Canton, a lot of cool light displays around those waterfront neighborhoods. It's really just a great reminder, I think, to me, that we may not be able to solve government corruption or gang violence or racial discrimination in Baltimore, but I'll be damned if all the planes in BWI are not going to be able to know where to land because of that light display. It's pretty impressive. I just swore on the podcast. That reminds me, we should give our listener discretion is advised tag. So when you're listening to the Beantown podcast, listener discretion is advised for 2 reasons. First, we might use some adult-themed language, on the podcast. That's number 1. Number 2, the podcast is simply objectively terrible. There's some adverbs for your Sunday night, so keep that in mind as you are listening to the podcast. We've cleaned it up a little bit in an attempt to win my mom back over as a subscriber. So I think it's worked. Mom, if you're listening, hi, how are you? Let's move on. That was Light City. The weather, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, the weather has been getting nicer and nicer. And anyone who's from the Mid-Atlantic knows we are only a month or 2 away from it getting unbearably hot And this is, I actually wanted to raise awareness about this, consider it a little PSA. It's of particular concern for guys with my body type. So here's the issue. When it gets hot out, it seems like all you see are the attractive tan people coming out of the woodwork. And out of the woodwork, where did that even come from? Who's coming out of log cabins in 2018? That's what I want to know. Is it time we do away with out of the woodwork? That could be a debate for next week in Memphis. But pale, chubby guys like me, we don't do as well in the 80 and the 90 degree heat. Let's just put that out there. Do not do as well. So this is why I'm actually long-term looking to get back to the Midwest, maybe like Minnesota or something, Wisconsin, somewhere where we're doing layers 9-10 months out of the year. Layers are huge. It's your classic, I'm your classic Midwest 7 to an 8 and Mid-Atlantic like 3 to a 4. That's sort of how I stack up on the 10-point scale. That's the weather. Speaking of weather and precipitation and all that stuff, my aunt bought me a plant from a garden. We went to a couple weeks ago. Really nice of her. Longwood Gardens, I believe, somewhere in southeast Pennsylvania by Wilmington. I tell you what, I completely get it now. I understand motherhood. I know what it's like to have a baby, raise it, be responsible for carrying it. So this plant, it's a cactus, right? So I'm thinking, okay, cactus, things from the desert. This baby probably only needs water once every, 3 to 4 weeks. Game changer. It needs water once a week. Hot damn. And here's the thing. The plant is growing in size too. From what I've researched online in 1 or 2 years, they're saying this plant is going to need a whole new pot, a whole new environment. So now I'm understanding all the stuff about hand-me-downs too. So it's just been a lot. So just keep me in your thoughts and prayers as you move forward. I've always had tremendous amount of respect for people raising children, but I should also mention that. So it's actually, there's 3 or 4 plants inside this one kind of thing. So that's 3 or 4, times the amount taken care of. So I get it now. My parents had 4 kids. So I've known, conservative white Christian homeschool families that are doing the 8 or 9 game. I get it. It's, man, thrice or 4 times the trouble when you got that many plants and, once a week water, man, it's a lot. So newfound respect for mothers, for people raising children, because I get it now. I have the same thing basically going on. So last but not least, I've been getting a lot of coupons in the mail. Apparently that's still a thing. Companies still mail you coupons, but it's been 2 companies specifically lately, and they're kind of piling on the advertisement. So one is Camel cigarettes, and the other one is Victoria's Secret. So if you know me, you know that I don't smoke cigarettes, and up to this point, I have not yet bought ladies' bras or panties before. But I keep the coupons on the fridge because while I don't have any current plans to purchase those products in the future, if I ever do find myself buying some dip or panties, I am going to save so much money, and you all are going to look very foolish. So take that for what you will. If you have any unwanted coupons that you're not using, whether it's for dip or bras and panties, or maybe something that I would actually use, like antidepressants or mid-range bourbon or frozen pizza, those sorts of goods and commodities are ones that I eat up literally and figuratively. So please do send those my way if you get the chance. You know where to send it. That's what's been going on in my life here. We are going to send a quick message of encouragement to our friend Joaquin. Hopefully he's ready to go. He has according to the red receipts, he has seen my messages, and we are now goading him to call in goad. Goad. There is a word for you. Let's check it out. Goad, to provoke or annoy. Well, that's not quite the connotation I want to go for. So as to stimulate some action or reaction. Sounds like okay, not even going to go there. Number 2, drive or urge an animal on with a goad. Ooh, now that's intriguing. Is goad a noun as well as a verb? Let's dig deeper into this. Bet you did not think that we were going to be discussing language on the podcast other than the foul stuff I usually use, and not the chicken variety. And goad, noun, a spiked stick used for driving cattle. Synonyms: prod, spike, staff, crook, and rod. I always wanted a crook, the shepherd's thing. Kind of looks like a cane, and I just thought it would be super cool. One of these days, I'm gonna herd some sheep, and then my ship's really gonna come in. So that's what's been going on there. What else is happening in life? The Philadelphia Flyers were officially eliminated by the 2-time Stanley Cup defending champion Pittsburgh Penguins just about an hour ago. I was chilling at a bar down on the waterfront in downtown Harrisburg, watching. This was actually really cool. So there are 2 screens: one baseball, one hockey. The hockey one, as mentioned, Pittsburgh Penguins versus Philadelphia Flyers. Excuse me. The baseball game is so cool. This was the Pittsburgh Pirates versus the Philadelphia Phillies. We had, first of all, 4 times the alliteration: Pittsburgh Pirates, Pittsburgh Penguins, Philadelphia Flyers, Philadelphia Phillies. That was super cool. They were happening at the same time, and Philadelphia won the baseball game, Pittsburgh won the hockey game, the hockey game being far more important. It was a series-clinching victory. The Penguins will now advance to the Eastern Conference semifinals, where they will await the winner of, hell if I know. Let's see, what are the other series? We have Maple Leafs versus Bruins. We have Caps versus Blue Jackets, and then, the Lightning already defeated the Devils. We're the Devils! A little David Putty action for you. I did see that Patrick Warburton had made an appearance at the Barclays Center. I think that's where the Devils play. I actually don't know. It might not be. But he was dressed in his famous Seinfeld face paint. That was pretty cool. We're just going to go down the rabbit hole here. Where do the New Jersey Devils play? Let's see. Prudential Center, which is in the Meadowlands. So it's not Barclays. Let's see. It's in downtown Newark, which I've never had the chance to walk around. I've been to the airport a couple times, right across the river there from New York City, I believe. Beautiful views of the skyline. Oh, it goes Newark, then Jersey City, then New York. But Staten Island is straight south of Newark too. So Staten Island is a fascinating place. If anyone listening has ever lived in Staten Island or visited Staten Island, shoot us an email, beantownpodcast@yahoo.com. That's Beantown, BEANTOWN podcast@yahoo.com. Tell us what is it like to live in Staten Island. You think of New York, and you think of Manhattan, and then Bronx Zoo, Yankees, all that good stuff. Brooklyn, huge in population. I think it would be like the 5th largest city in America if it was just by itself. Queens, countryside, more like where Kennedy and I think LaGuardia are, although I can never remember exactly where LaGuardia is. I think it's just north of, like, a straight shot north of Kennedy, right? On the other side of Long Island. Something like that. Tough to find on the map because it's so small. Anyways, but then you got Staten Island. Oh, there it is. I see East Elmhurst. Yeah, it's north of Kennedy and a little bit west. Then you got Staten Island. What's the deal with Staten Island? It's kind of like the 5th borough. Nobody ever really talks about it. Are there things happening on Staten Island? Do people actually live there? Is it just an uninhabited island? I don't quite understand what's going on with it. Is it a lot cheaper than other places? Is it kind of like its own mini New York, but still part of New York City? So these are the questions that I would like answers to. So please, if you know anything about Staten Island, we're doing some investigative research. You can always tweet at us. We are at Beantown Cast on Twitter or on Facebook, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. Always comment on this video. You know where to find us. Oh, there's a Target and a Home Depot and an Applebee's. Well, that sells it to me. I think we might have to take Beantown Podcast on the road to Staten Island, live from Applebee's. That could be a thing, right? It's like Chili's Junior. It's good but not great, whereas Chili's is good and great. So Staten Island, let's put that on. Let's put a pin in that. Let's come back to that pretty soon here. We're gonna go ahead for the sake of time here. I don't know what's going on with Joaquin. I hope you're fine. Hopefully you didn't fall into a well or anything like that. Let me check. We got some tweets to the account here. Let's see if there's anything I'm missing. Nope, just some likes on my tweets. What else is new? Some retweets, some likes, some favorites, that sort of thing. That reminds me, please. So we are in talks with a snack food company currently to try to get a sponsor for the podcast, actually, which is really exciting. It helps us all out a bunch if you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, all that stuff. It really makes a difference in the advertising revenue dollars. And when we can increase that revenue, we can increase new platforms. Spotify, there have been rumors of expanding to that platform. We'll have more money to go on the road, potentially get in front of some live audiences here on these road trips, which would be really cool. So please like us, subscribe, comment, rate. If you like the Beantown podcast, please let us know. Leave some comments. You can rate us on iTunes. You can rate us on SoundCloud. Write us a review on Facebook. All that stuff helps. If you really hate the podcast, you can do that as well. It's still going to help us generate traffic, and that's always good for advertising dollars. So we're hoping to get that snack food company as a sponsor. That would be huge. But we're also, continuing to explore other avenues for revenue. So with that, let me get a sip of water, and we're going to jump into our big topic for discussion today. 23 minutes in, we're in good shape. I need to find dinner after this. Is there a Chili's in Harrisburg? Maybe somebody could research that for me as we're moving into women in leadership. Bum, bum, bum. You'll also notice that we're going to probably not have any intro or outro music these next 4 weeks because my guitar is at home in Beantown again this week. Right now we're coming to you live from Harrisburg. Next week we'll be in Memphis. After that, Boston, and then Washington, D.C. We're not even scheduled to do a podcast from the homestand until, let's see, 29th May 19th, maybe a month from now. That's crazy to think about, but that's the way it's going. So I was coming over up on 83 today, and I was listening to Justin Tucker, the Ravens kicker, because he's a big opera singer. He had a commercial on, and he was singing the Toreador song from Carmen, George Bizet, Carmen. And, of course, he's got a good voice, and, of course, I got to belt it out, too, I'm trying to join in. And then I started singing after Tucker finished up. I started singing some Funicula, classic Italian favorite, Mamma Mia. And I got to tell you, I'm being honest to God, straightforward with you. I'm not a great singer, but damn, when I get hot on those opera hits, I can fly. So if you think that you want to potentially hear that, we might try to do like some sort of instrumental backing track from the internet, and I'll I'll be the best opera singer you ever listened to. If you think that would be fun, let us know, because it's probably going to sideline my voice for a couple days afterwards. But hey, I do it for the fans. That's how much I love you guys. So there was my tangent. We're at 25 minutes. Let's hit women in leadership. So we're going to do a little pros and cons sort of thing here. Then I will leave my thoughts on the issue. This is like having, two guests on to debate the topic, except it's just me. I think it will be better that way. You only have to keep track of one view. You don't have to. I'm still going to present both sides, but it's not going to get all mushy and jumbled and fake news, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and jump in. And hey, if Joaquin calls in at any point, we're just going to throw him right into the discussion of women in leadership, even though that's not what he signed up for. So let's do a little con first, and we're hitting home. We're hitting hard right where you make your money. Right, we're going to the New Testament. Oh boy, we did our Good Friday podcast a couple 3 weeks ago here, and if you heard that, I wasn't too happy with God. He killed all those Egyptian firstborns. Like, what was the deal with that? Burning Bush, we said would be a good softball team name. I still think that's incredible. Burning Bush would also be a good horse name, but we're going to do our Kentucky Derby podcast in a couple weeks here. But let's read from some scripture, and let's see. This is from Mark 3, verses 13 through 19, and I'm just giving a little summary here. You can follow along. I'm in the New International Version, or NIV, as we call it in the non-denom church. So we're talking about apostles here, 12 apostles. 13 actually. So Judas sort of he gets benched. He kisses Jesus on the cheek. He's out of there. They brought in someone else. I don't know. Maybe it was like Thomas the Third or something. He might have been a king of England. I don't remember. But so Jesus, if you're following along your Bible, he only chose men as 12 apostles, and that is often cited as a reason by the church and by conservatives and by Christians that only men should be appointed to church leadership roles. So Jesus sent his apostles out to spread the gospel to the world, seeking food and shelter where they could find it, facing great danger and ultimately martyrdom. It's a hell of a word there. This would not have been considered an appropriate role for a woman in biblical times, just as it would not be considered appropriate today. That's from ChristianBibleReference.com. So there's your first against argument for women in leadership. We're going to keep on going here. We're going to come straight from the scripture here with a stone cold stunner. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verses 33 through 35. As in all the congregations of the saints, women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church. Wow. I don't know who wrote Corinthians, but he's coming out hard in the paint, and he's going with a skyhook right for those 2 points. 1 Timothy 2:11. Chapter 2, verses 11 and 12 says, a woman should learn in quietness and full submission. Side note, full submission would be a really good college student film thriller, something to do with sexual predator. I don't know. It's still raw. We're still thinking about it. Let's go back. A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She must be silent. Timothy, coming in strong. That's a man who knows what he wants. That's a 21st century man right there. And then we're going to finish up here with Return of Kings. If you don't know Return of Kings, that's probably a good thing, and you might just want to keep it that way. But we're going to read from an article that was published last year from Return of Kings, talking about women in leadership. It says, almost every young woman nowadays is being taught to embrace their leadership skills, to fashion themselves as bossy, rational leaders. Bossy. I feel that word. Right, guys? Oh, Jesus. All the while ignoring the very fact that most women are idiotic. Oh, geez, I should have screened this. It's all right. There's no swearing. Uncultured, and if made powerful, potentially sociopathic. It seems like the emphasis should be somewhere else, but sociopathic. The fact is, most women distinctly lack the ability and prowess to become great minds. Let's look at the current state of affairs. This is what I was saying. How many noteworthy economists have been women? I can't name any economists. How many philosophers have been women? You hear a lot about Plato and Socrates and Aristotle. You don't hear about Marge or Betsy, So just throwing that out there. I think so. That was our cons side of the argument. So we're coming in pro, and we're utilizing CNN as a source article, and I apologize for that. I know they're very biased. They're not the best, but hey, when you're trying to get both sides to a losing argument, and I say that tongue in cheek for all the females out there who are about ready to find me and chop my balls off. You got to do what you can. So coming in with the pro side, let's lighten it up a little bit here for you. CNN says the evidence shows that female leaders typically have more compassion and empathy and a more open and inclusive negotiation style. You'll see they didn't cite their sources, which I think is red flag number one. But let's plow forward. This is not, of course, necessarily true of all women. There are many different leadership styles. That said, modern ideas of transformative leadership are more in line with qualities women generally share: empathy, inclusiveness, and an open negotiation style. In developing nations, having women at the table impacts how policy resources are spent, either through gender budgeting efforts or simply, such as in the case of climate change. Oh boy, Al Gore alert. Jesus, let me tell you this, climate change wasn't an issue when George Bush was president. Okay? I'm going to go out there and say it. And then Obama comes in and, Kyoto Protocol, enough said. Let's get back to it. Showing how women in the developing world experience issues differently than men. The involvement of women in the climate movement, for example, they're stuck on the climate movement. Get a new song, CNN. Has led to better policy making and spurred solutions like clean water, clean solar cook stoves. That's the end of the sentence. Women's leadership also helps drive direct change in structural policies, including parental leave, child care, and pay. And I'm glad they said that, because here's a little rant for you here for your Sunday night wind down. Difference between maternity leave and paternity leave. So you talk to a modern woman in the U.S., and she's having a baby, and she gets maternity leave from her company, which maybe is guaranteed under federal. I don't actually know. Excuse me. But these ladies are getting like 4 weeks sometimes of maternity leave, which, okay, that's fine. Not upset about that. But how many weeks are guaranteed for the Pats out there, for the dads? Paternity leave. I don't see many dads getting 4 weeks of paternity leave. So that's my concern. Let's either everybody get 4 weeks, or if you're not going to give dads 4 weeks, then you got to bump those women down. Because Title IX says that you can't give more paternity leave to a woman than you can to a man. In fact, most men aren't even allowed to take maternity leave. They call it something completely different, paternity leave. So, PA from the old Amish root for Pennsylvania. So there's a little rant for you. How do I fall on this women in leadership thing? Well, first and foremost, I have another rant that I want to put out there. Actually, no, we talked about it on the podcast last week, right? I don't want to double up here. It was the women who, post a Snapchat story of like Zac Efron shirtless, dancing and singing and doing all the sexy times and stuff. And they're like, caption. Okay, that's fine. I don't care. My issue is that you pull a guy out and he posts a Snapchat story of, I don't know, Kate Upton on the beach doing her sexy time, and he's like, all of a sudden it's just a flock. He's attacked for expressing his sexuality. And I don't think we should be attacking anyone for expressing their sexuality. They can do what they want to do on Snapchat, unless and this has come into play, being of my age. Sometimes you see those people on Snapchat who you're like friends with, kind of, but you don't really care about them. Those are the ones who get you, where you'll just be browsing along through your Snapchat stories at like 9 o'clock one night, and boom, next thing you know, there are some naked breasts and or other genitalia out right live on the Snapchat. That's always a little discombobulating. You're not expecting it, right? I guess if you were in the right mood, it might be welcomed. But for most people, myself included, you don't expect it, and it sort of hits you hard, not in a good way. So there's your warning. If any of my friends were thinking of exposing themselves live on Snapchat tonight, please refrain, or at least here's a compromise, because we're all about compromise on this podcast, especially tonight. Just post a picture before that, like a black screen, and just say, boom, naked boobs alert, or something like that. Or if other parts of your body that generally don't come out are going to be making an appearance on your profile, then just give us a heads up. It's just the polite thing to do in 2018. So that's my rant about getting naked on Snapchat. I've seen it on Instagram too. Usually you just don't want to see it. Give us a warning. That's all I'm saying. So how do I feel about women in leadership? I'm totally pro. And I'll tell you why. I think that the 19th Amendment is good. I think we've seen a lot more female leaders. I think it's something like now 2% of Fortune 500 CEOs are females, which is up from whatever it was under the failing Obama administration. Don't get me started on that guy. Did you see him? He was totally smooching on the First Lady, Melania Trump, at George Sr.'s or Barbara Bush's funeral. What's up with that? Obama's a big player. Sometimes he's a little bit too charismatic, though. So keep an eye on that guy, Mr. Steal Your Girl. So that was going on. But yeah, I'm totally pro on this issue. I think they bring having females in positions of leadership is long overdue. Diverse perspectives. This might come as a shock to a lot of you listeners, especially the right-wing base. And I'm trying not to alienate you guys, but it's the guys have sort of had their fun, and now it's ladies' night. And it's ladies' night, and the feeling's right. Oh yeah, it's ladies' night. Oh, what a night! Is that who sings that? Is that Kool and the Gang, or who sings "Do a Little Dance, Make a Little Love, Get Down Tonight"? Is that RJ and the Funk House or something like that? Well, now we got to look this up. It's not Kool and the Gang. Ladies' night. Oh, what a night. Oh, it is Kool and the Gang. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. I get them. I feel like they sound very similar to Make a Little Love, Do a Little Dance, or Do a Little Dance, Make a Little Love, Get Down at KC and the Sunshine Band, who KC was actually a white guy. Did you know that? I think I'd heard That's the Way, I like it, I think I heard that on the radio about 50 times in my life before I realized that while most of the members of KC and the Sunshine Band identify as African American, KC himself is a white, pudgy guy, looks like he lives on Staten Island or something. That was shocking when I found that out. That's kind of the end of what I wanted to say there. Joaquin, if you're out there, we would love to have you call in. I know you've seen my messages. You have my number. We do have a tight schedule here, and we're running long. So I apologize to the listeners. You're feeling disappointed. We haven't gotten to talk about passion or losing your passion yet. As we approach the 40-minute mark here, which is already longer than I like to get on most podcasts, we do have one other thing to get to before we wrap up. Yeah, it's been super long, right? No intro music, no outro music. Usually we're at like half an hour and then maybe 10 minutes of intro outro, but we're doing what we can here. We haven't, let me take a sip of water. Feel feel like Marco Rubio. We haven't done advice questions on the podcast in a while, and that is not because we have been ignoring your questions or your requests that you email to us or tweet at us. That's just because there have not been requests. So we would love to get some more questions. We always appreciate it when those do roll in. Again, there's so many ways that you can engage with us, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. But the best way to get in touch, if you want a direct form of contact, is our email. It's beantownpodcast@yahoo.com. That's Beantown again, BEANTOWN, podcast@yahoo.com. Email us that. Always love it when we get the advice questions coming in. Oh, baby. Here we go. So this is from Ashley B. in Blair, Maryland. Hi, Ashley. Thanks for calling in. So I'm with my boyfriend right now as I'm writing this, and honestly, I'm so bored I had to write this. Oof, that's a tough crowd. I heard the best relationships are boring because zero drama. I don't know who told you that, but the drama thing is zero drama good, boring bad, right? Keep those B's together, like you're an apiarist is what I would say. But to me, that's BS. I'm not saying cook up drama like a bunch of kids, but if you've been with a guy for just 2 months and are already this bored, then what's left? I bring up things that interest me, but no response. He always wants to talk about some serious stuff, things that are important, but not compulsory to talk on every day. Not the best phrasing there. Maybe run this by your English teacher first. He is content, just sitting down silently and counting down the days. Jesus Christ, that is grim as hell. Counting down the days to what? I thought if Jesus was going to make a return, it was going to be during that 2012 Mayan calendar stuff. And 6 years later, all we got was a crappy John Cusack movie. Moving on. I want someone I can be myself with. Well, it sounds like you kind of are. He asked once why I don't call him when I want to have fun, laugh, or open up. And the answer is because you don't respond. Boom. Don't know what to do, to be honest. Well, she writes TBH. For any of you older listeners, I know we've been trying to tap into the 80 to 89 demographic after last week's podcast. And let's do a little side note right there. Thank you so much. This should not have had to have waited 42 minutes to get in, but thank you to my grandma Sally for coming on the podcast live last week to talk about stamping, to talk about cruises, to talk about China. You should have seen my hands. I did the motion so good, better than the POTUS himself. We had a great time. It was our most highly reviewed podcast yet, one of our highest listened to ones. So I do apologize for this one because, let's see, we're coming off of Jack 2 weeks ago, my brother, and then my grandmother Sal last week. Those were both really strong podcasts, great reviews, kept it brief enough. This one has been kind of all over the place, a little bit of a crash and burn type of deal. So I do apologize, but thank you to my grandma last week for coming on. That was fantastic. We are going to be coming to you live. We're going on the road again later this summer for one, maybe two podcasts, probably two. But we're going to be coming to you live out from Alaska/Canada, and we might be able to get my grandma Sal back on the podcast at that time since she got such great reviews the first time. We would like to get her back on again before too long. So look out for that. That would be in late July, early August. But back to this advice question. Well, Ashley, here's what I got to tell you. If you're not happy, then you're not happy. And if you feel like he's this weirdo who's counting down the days until what, which you did not really specify, but it might be time that you get a new boo. This guy doesn't sound like he's got a lot going on. So, give him another chance. You might just want to show him what you wrote here. And, you can have him listen to the podcast, show him this advice. He kind of sounds like a loser, like my favorite Beck song. And as great as that song was, soy un perdedor, you don't want to date un perdedor. You want to date un champion, So there's my advice for you. If you're not happy, you got to get out. That was the Beantown podcast for this week. And we're not getting anything from Joaquin Nolasco, despite being, 45, 46 minutes in now. So, Joaquin, sorry we miss you today. We will try to reconnect in the future, maybe next week. Again, reminder, next week we are coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. We'll be doing a little Life on the Mississippi action there. And after that, we are going to be in Boston. We are getting together with Ryan Ligon and Kristen English, hosts of the Car Ride Convos podcast. Ryan was on for our Oscar special, if you remembered, which was, it feels like a really long time ago, but was, only the first week of March, I think. So it's only been a little over a month, but this has been, these last 4 weeks, I feel like I've taken 2 years off of my life because of a lot of different things, but mostly work-related stuff and a lot of travel. But we're soaking it up every day. And then in 3 weeks from today, we will be doing a podcast live from more or less Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. That should be a lot of fun. Look out for that as well. This has been Quinn David Furness presenting the Beantown podcast. If you did make it this far, I do appreciate you sticking with us. Please, if you liked what you heard today, if you liked our lively debate, if you liked what's been going on in my life, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Please rate us, write about us, share us with your friends. And I mean that, a lot of this podcast is tongue-in-cheek, but this is part of my long-term life plan to kind of get going here. So if you do like what you're hearing and you have friends who are looking for a podcast to listen to, check it out or share it with them. Tell them to check it out. If they really don't like it, great, but at least you spread the word. So kind of like Jesus told his 12 apostles, right? Go be the salt of the earth. Just not the salt that Lot's wife got turned into. So a lot of salt in the Bible, sort of your, one of those things that pop up, 40 days, 40 nights, 7, the number 7. Also the name 7 from George Costanza and Salt, which was an Angelina Jolie movie that I don't think I ever saw. I saw The Tourist with Johnny Depp, but I never did see Salt. I don't think I've ever seen an Angelina Jolie movie that I actually remember. I never did see Tomb Raider. I will watch that sexy clip on Beowulf, on repeat, or from Beowulf on repeat, over and over again, but those are the only 2 minutes of the movie that I'm actually interested in. Beyond that, I just know her for Brad Pitt. Are they married? Are they engaged? Divorced? What about their 19 kids? I don't really know. I don't care to know. And that's how we're going to finish the podcast, with an old-fashioned rant about a celebrity that was important 15 years ago. So thank you for tuning in this week. Again, we're coming to you live from Harrisburg, PA, Beantown Podcast Road Trip. It's been a great time. We are going to go get some dinner before hitting up the work week this week. Next week, we'll be in Memphis. Thanks for tuning in, and we will check in on you next week.